My name is Kim Audley, and I am the Vice President of Public Policy of the Chamber of Commerce of Southwest Indiana. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Mark Norton, who is a candidate seeking election to the office of State Representative to the Indiana General Assembly. Please note that the same set of questions will be used for both candidates running for this office. Welcome, Mark.
Good morning.
Good morning. Shall we get started?
Okay.
All right. First of all, if you will, please state your name, the office you're seeking, and your current position of employment.
My name is Mark Norton, and I'm seeking the office of District 64 State Representative. I currently don't have a political office. I work for a power company in the area, power plant.
All right. If elected, what would be your top 3 priorities, and how would you seek to fund and implement those priorities while serving in the state legislature?
Well, number one priority, I think, would be to reinvest in public education. The last couple of years, we have cut $600 million from public education budget while we're still running a $1.5 billion surplus. And we put some unfunded mandates on the school districts, and so it's been pretty tough on public education. I think we need to take a real good look at our funding, where we're at. We wouldn't need any kind of a tax increase because there's money in the budget. Obviously, we run surplus, and we need to kind of restore some of those funds and make sure we're doing what's right for our public education system. Second priority with me is probably infrastructure. Infrastructure is the backbone of business. My parents were self-employed, and they knew what it meant to have good roads, good water, sewer, and all the infrastructure. So we have to be investing in this. Here again, we've not been doing it. The last several years, we've been cutting the budgets, and we're not taking care of our roads and bridges. There are a couple things there with funding that I think we need to be doing. One of our candidates for governors proposed eliminating sales tax on gasoline, and I think that that's something we really need to look at, as well as we don't charge sales tax for food and medicines, and gasoline is just as vital to people right here trying to go to work and try to live and get by, and our $4 a gallon gas is killing us. Our motor fuel tax, our state tax, is currently 18 cents a gallon. It's been that way forever. The average nationwide is right at 21 cents. If we took the 7% sales tax off gas, increased our motor fuel tax 2 cents, that combined with the fact that we've taken $144 million out of our motor fuel fund the last few years to pay for our state police and our Bureau of Motor Vehicles, we could restore about $300 million in funding for our infrastructure, our roads, bridges. And that's what we need to be using it for. Our roads are crumbling around here. That will actually be a net decrease, in taxes, because the sales tax today is adding about a quarter to the price of gasoline where it is today. So if we drop that quarter and put 2 cents strictly towards our roads and bridges in our motor fuel fund, that would reduce the price today 23 cents a gallon, and that would take a huge load off people out here trying to strive to get by. Third priority, and I guess this is going to be a priority that every politician of every stripe is going to say, create jobs. We need more jobs, but we need good jobs. Unfortunately, the legislation passed this past year, I don't think is going to create good jobs. I think Governor Daniels is correct. There are employers waiting at the state line to flock in here with low-wage, no-benefit jobs. That's not going to help Indiana. We are at the crossroads of America. We have the infrastructure here. When we get 69 completed, as well as I-70 and I-80, everything's going to pass through Indiana. We don't need to have this be the resting point for all low-wage jobs in America. We have working poor right now. We've got people get up every day and go to work to provide for their families, and yet they live in poverty. Minimum wage doesn't cut it. And so when I'm talking about creating jobs with tax dollars and tax incentives, there needs to be a minimum threshold, I think $15 an hour. If you don't provide a $15 an hour wage for your workers, don't come to the State House asking for money. You're welcome to come in, and you can bring in these 600 turkey processing jobs if you want to do that. But don't ask the state to be giving you money, because what's going to happen is our social cost in this state is going to escalate when we bring in those low-wage jobs We have more people on Medicaid, their families are on Medicaid, we have more crime, we just have a lot of social issues that escalate when you get into that situation. And I don't want Indiana to turn into that kind of state. I don't think anybody else does.
Okay. Do you support the Kernan-Shepherd initiative? Please explain your answer.
Well, that's a huge initiative. There are, I think, 27 points to it, and I think 2 of them have passed out of the legislature. There are a lot of good ideas in there. The problem is the same problem that initiative found when it hit the Senate. It's a cookie-cutter approach to everything in our state, and we don't have a cookie-cutter state. My district down here in the southwestern corner of the state, it's all rural and small towns. These people rely on their local government, whether it be their county commissioners, their townships. We like that down here. I talk to people every day that don't want to do away with that kind of government. It might work in Marion County or Lake County or Hamilton County, you know, but a cookie-cutter approach that came out of Kernan-Shepherd is the reason that it hit a wall, didn't get anywhere. We need to be looking at individually where we can make some of these initiatives work. The school corporation consolidation is another point. You know, they said anybody that has less than 2,000 student enrollment's got to consolidate with a nearby school district. Okay, Gibson County, we've got 3 school districts. None of them have 2,000 students. Do we combine 2, all 3? I mean, how do we do that? The logistics of it with our transportation costs and everything. I mean, we're not going to save anything. People always think, well, we've got 3 school superintendents and 3 assistants, and we've got all that structure. Yeah, we do. We need those. There's been more initiatives put on the last 2 years on these superintendents and this administration to perform the evaluation function and everything associated with these schools. I personally know our superintendent, North Gibson, and the assistant superintendent, they don't have time to deal with 2 other school corporations. That's all they can do to take care of North Gibson, and just to say we can automatically combine all of these school districts, not a good idea. In some places, there's a lot of consolidation can take place. So I really think there's a lot of good in there, but we've got to get down and study what can work, and it's not a cookie-cutter approach.
During the next session of General Assembly, legislators will be tasked with writing a new budget. What priorities would you advocate in this process? If a budget increase is needed, what taxes would you increase, or what budget cuts would you propose?
Well, let's start at the end of that question, I guess, first. We don't need any tax increases. The budget is there. In fact, we have a surplus. In fact, we just saw the first of the month about $500 million reverted back to the state fund that was budgeted for all these different agencies. So when we go to look at it next January, we need to see why did FSSA send $47 million back to the budget? Why did the Department of Technology send $40 million back? There are 6 departments or 6 agencies in the state that sent over $10 million back. This is money that was budgeted to them, okay? If they just did a really good job, didn't need the money, fantastic. Next year, we'll look at adjusting that downward. That frees up more money to go to education, infrastructure, and other areas that need it. There's $500 million right there that there are a lot of agencies could have used more money. You know, maybe just a few $1 million more. And so I think somebody made a mistake. You know, was it the legislature? Were it the department heads that came in there and said, this is what I have to operate? I don't know. We need to really look at that process. I think there's plenty of money. Our revenues, they're projected to increase, I believe, 6% next year. With a $14 billion budget and 6% growth and all the money that was there, budgeted and not spent, we've got plenty of revenue in the state of Indiana. We don't need any tax increases. The one that I did talk about, the motor fuel tax, that's dedicated to roads, and that's actually a savings when you put the 2 together. But that would be the priorities, and on each department, they're pretty much there. You know, I'm not going to change those, but I think we just need to take a good look at why a agency didn't spend the money that was budgeted, and we need to correct that.
Okay. You've addressed this somewhat, but what do you consider to be the top transportation and infrastructure priorities for Southwest Indiana, and what plans do you have for funding them?
Well, I think I-69 is our issue down here. Undoubtedly, it's going to be the economic engine, the driver for Southwest Indiana. But if we don't complete it, it's not going to go anywhere. It's the road to nowhere. Yeah, we might be able to drive to Crane by the end of this year, but if we can't get any farther, we're not going to pick up what we need out of I-69. We need the transportation network to pass all the way to Indianapolis. That being said, that section that's left out, there's no money there for it right now. We have to sit down and we have to take a real good hard look at this. It has to be completed and it has to be funded. And the difference between a guy like myself that's just running for office and a politician, someone that's trying to hang on to office, they'll never tell you exactly, well, we've got to increase taxes or increase the money to go to this. It's a reality. It has to happen. Governor Daniels made a good move with the toll road lease to get it off the ground and get it where it is. Without that, we wouldn't even be turning dirt down here yet. That's a super deal. We've got to pick the ball up and run with it. We've got to finish it, and that's the #1 priority down here in my estimation. That's what's going to drive southwestern Indiana to prosper.
Along those same lines, what would you do to encourage the construction of the I-69 bridge over the Ohio River between Evansville and Henderson?
Well, I think our part of it is finishing it through Indiana. We're working that direction. We have a plan in place. We're constructing. We're paying for it. Then we put pressure on our federal government. This is up to our local congressmen, congresswomen. This is the interstate to tie our southern and northern borders together, go through the heart of our country, and that is what the interstate system is all about. And it's their obligation to pay for that. We're taking a big obligation on in our state to pay for the portion that runs through our state, and it's incumbent on the interstate system to do their part. We are a donor state on the national motor fuel tax. We get approximately 92 cents out of every dollar that we send in. We need to get that 8 cents back right now. We need to get dollar for dollar, and it wouldn't hurt me a bit if we got a little bit more than a dollar for a change instead of California, New York, and some of these other states that are getting way more than a dollar. That would be what I would do. Put that ball in the federal government's court and pressure our legislators here. That's their job. You need to work towards getting this in reality, and it's going to be their job.
Government does not create jobs, but does create conditions that make additional jobs more or less likely. What conditions or economic development tools would you like to see improved upon or added in order to stimulate economic growth, create jobs, and retain current employers in Southwest Indiana?
Well, I'd have to argue with you about government not creating jobs. Just by the very nature of our government, we create services which create jobs. You know, fire protection, police protection, public schools, infrastructure construction, all of those things create jobs. And whether or not they're public sector jobs or they're private for-profit industry, they're still jobs. I think the atmosphere we could create immediately would be to reinvest in our infrastructure. You know, our roads, our bridges are in bad shape. We've got like 40% of our bridges structurally deficient. That's only going to get worse if we don't start to reinvest into these construction jobs. That creates jobs, which in turn puts money in the economy and creates more jobs. As far as tax incentives, I'm not for giving tax incentives just to create minimum wage jobs. I believe that we need to have a threshold, a minimum threshold of $15 an hour. If you can't create a job to pay $15 an hour, don't come to the taxpayers asking for any donations, because quite frankly, those are poverty level jobs. When you get below that, they just create more problems for Indiana. So I don't think we need to do anything to create minimum wage jobs, good quality jobs. Then we need to do that.
Okay. Substance abuse, particularly methamphetamine abuse, is a costly community problem in terms of law enforcement, crime, judicial, incarceration, fire hazard, environmental concerns, child care, health care, and other expenditures. What changes in the approach to this problem would you suggest, and how would you fund any new strategies?
Well, that's probably our #1 problem in southwestern Indiana is methamphetamine. It's gotten into everything, and like you say, all those things you mentioned are high cost dollars that just keep getting more costly. I think we need to be investing in more in our drug courts and providing rehabilitative services. These folks, if we can catch them early enough, as they start to get caught up in the system, the judicial system with their methamphetamine arrest, and if we can start to turn these folks around. The drug courts have been very successful in Vandenberg County. We just started one in Gibson County within the last couple of months, so it's getting started. I think that's going to be where we need to be investing, because incarceration is not the answer. We've got to get these people to understand that there is a better way of life than what they're doing with themselves and their families. The children suffer the most from this methamphetamine scourge, and we've got to get them straightened out and get them going the right direction. We're never going to rid it. Some people think that we need to make it a pseudoephedrine prescription drug. I don't think that's the answer. It will slow it down for these cookers immediately, but then it will return again because they can go right across the border and get their material and bring it back here to cook. And really, statistics say only 20% of the meth is produced locally by the cooks. 80% comes from Mexico. So they're going to get it. And what we need to do is try to get these people turned around where they don't see the need to use methamphetamine.
Okay. And finally, what's your long-term vision for Southwest Indiana, and what specific ideas or proposals would you suggest to improve the quality of life in our region?
Well, I guess my long-term vision, Southwestern Indiana, is to be just about like we are right now. I come from a small town. I grew up in East Central Illinois, a town of less than 3,000. I live in Princeton, a small town atmosphere. I like small towns. I don't like the big city. I don't want to see our big city, which is Evansville, obviously, in this part of the state, keep sprawling out over our farm ground and engulfing so much of our area, our wide open area. I like the way it is. Now, I think we could always have quality of life improvements with different entertainment options and different things that people want to do to make it a better place to live. But I think we've got to slow down this urban sprawl myself. It's taken over so much of Vandenberg County, and I like the small town atmosphere that we have here, and I like to keep it that way long term.
Okay. Mark, if you have a campaign website or contact information you'd like to share, please do so now.
My website is marknorton.org. Most of my campaign information is on there. I also have contact information, phone, and email that you can get off that website, so that'll probably take care of that.
Okay, well, Mark, we greatly appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.